Good evening. Welcome to the Costa Mesa Planning Commission meeting for Monday, April 26th. I call the meeting to order and ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. And ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. In order to minimize the spread of the COVID-19 virus, Governor Newsom has issued executive orders that temporarily suspend requirements of the Brown Act, which allows Planning Commission members to attend Planning Commission meetings telephonically. Given the health risks associated with COVID-19, the City Council chambers will be closed to the public until further notice. If you would like to participate in this meeting, you can participate via the following options. You are strongly encouraged to observe the Planning Commission meetings live on Costa Mesa TV at Spectrum Channel 3 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99 and online at youtube.com/Costa Mesa TV. You can also participate via Zoom by following the instructions on tonight's agenda, which you can find online at the city's website. During the public comment portion of the meeting, if you are participating via Zoom, use the raised hand function located in the participants window and wait for city staff to announce your name. Then unmute your line when it is your turn to speak. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise directed. You can also participate in tonight's meeting via telephone by dialing 1-669-900-6833. The webinar ID is 960-6037-9921, and the passcode is 595958. During the public comment period, if you are participating by telephone, press *9 to add yourself to the queue and wait for city staff to announce your name, your phone number, and then press *6 to unmute your line when it is your turn to speak. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise directed. So with that announcement, we have the good fortune tonight to be swearing in our latest planning commissioner, Mr. Adam Arith, and I will turn that duty over to our city clerk, Ms. Brenda Green.
Mr. Arith, welcome, and would you please raise your right hand? Do you, Adam Arith, Planning Commissioner of the City of Costa Mesa, solemnly affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you'll bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you're about to enter?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Commissioner Arith. Welcome to this esteemed body, and we'll get to Commissioner comments in a moment. This takes us to roll call. Julie, please.
Chair Jericho.
Here.
Vice Chair Colbert.
Present.
Commissioner Arith.
Present.
Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Toller.
Here.
Commissioner Torje.
Here.
And Commissioner Zick is absent.
Okay, Julie, thank you very much. We have no announcements or presentations tonight, which brings us to public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where the public is permitted to address the Planning Commission on items within our jurisdiction, but that are not on tonight's agenda. So again, public comments are for items within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction, but are not on tonight's agenda. Ms. Green or Julie, do we have any public comment tonight?
Can phone number ending in 698, you may provide your public comment.
Ms. Colgan, this is Stephen Chan. I provided you a 3-minute video. Please play it.
Just 1 minute, please.
On the left, strut bar, laser attacking residential security cameras. On the right, strut bar, hounding the neighborhood with low frequency bass. Strut bar, on the lips of many city council peeps, has a restriction on the liquor license which reads, entertainment provided shall not be audible outside the area under the control of the licensee. State and local government racist policy, however, does not apply down here by the soup kitchen. What you see on the left is strut bar repeatedly attacking residential security cameras with a laser. And that background music is not music for our ears. Saturday night, strut bar went on all night. This third weekend in a row since the partial pandemic reopening that our neighborhood has been bombarded by strut bar. Saturday before last, when we complained to the cops, they waited until after 2:30 to do something. What'd they do? Rang the phone in housing, where people finally were able to sleep. 5 hours later, yesterday morning, 7 a.m., and the smart and final, unable to comply with local codes for 2 years now, commences in on the neighborhood. State and local regulators are not regulating. This would not be happening in a white neighborhood. Both these liquor licensees are operating normally as a public nuisance. In the words of your exalted ex-mayor Katrina Foley, but before we play that, the whine you heard was a box crusher that we get hours and hours of every day.
Failure to comply with our ordinance and the continued failure to comply and continued operation out of compliance is the nuisance.
We have urged the city to abate these rogue liquor licensees under the California unlawful liquor sales law many times. And now we ask listeners to contact your councilperson and echo our repeated calls for the rule of law here in Costa Mesa. For staff, please review the source video files that have been provided to you under separate cover for numerous violations of the conditional use permit 17-03 signed by probably the first thing that Katrina Foley signed when she got to be mayor, January 3rd, 2017, creating this nuisance. Good evening.
Mr. Chan, are you still on the line? Brenda, Ms. Green, is Mr. Chan still on the line?
I
Or
do
Julie?
not see him still on the line, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody on staff, do we have the data of those source files, particularly the laser?
I don't have them in front of me, Chair, but we do have the files, so we can take a look at that.
Okay. Okay. I'll contact the staff, and I have a conversation about this, because the source files that have been previously were from last year, and this is apparently new. And if somebody's shining laser lights into people's security cameras, then we have a problem. So I want to explore some options with staff, and also have a conversation with city council member. So, okay, any other public comments?
If anyone else would like to provide a public comment, please raise your hand. No one else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll close public comment. That brings us to Planning Commission comments, and we'll begin this evening with our new commissioner, Commissioner Arith. Again, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And hello to everyone. This is an amazing day to join this group. I've been following the Planning Commission for a long time now, and I've thought for a long time that Planning Commission is kind of the wellspring of a lot of the ideas. We get to poke holes through a lot of logic, and I'm really excited to be joining this team. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Torje.
I have no public comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Toller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a quick comment. Yesterday afternoon, we had a city bike ride. Councilmember Reynolds has been doing this. This was our 11th monthly bike ride. We took a year off during the pandemic, but we're back at it. It's normally the 3rd or 4th Sunday of the month, and we're doing it again. It's a really cool, fun way to, with a group, so it feels safe and comfortable to explore the city on 2 wheels. The other commissioner, Russell, was there with me, and I think she would agree. It opens your eyes to how quickly and conveniently we could get across town on bike, and it's something really cool to see. The flip side of that is often we have the windshield perspective, and when you're behind the steering wheel, it doesn't seem that bad. It's like, what are those bike advocates complaining about? But when you get on those streets, you have a clear vision of the need for improvement out there. So it's fun. Sometimes there's kids with us. There's normally 20, 25 people. We're spatially distant, but keep your eyes out, everybody, for 3rd or 4th Sundays of the month. So city bike rides. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Toller. Commissioner Russell.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to echo Commissioner Toller's comments about the bike ride. It really was fun. It's a great way to get out and meet some new people, get a little exercise, and see the city from a different perspective. I know that even in doing one of the pedestrian analysis walks, I saw a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily see driving in my car, even riding on my bike, in terms of how people maybe that are disabled might get around. So do keep track of when the bike rides are. They're fun, they're easy. We got to see 5 West Side parks yesterday. And then on Earth Day, last Thursday, the sanitation department and the water department did a really neat Zoom presentation on their conservation efforts. It was really interesting to hear what happens to my trash once it leaves my trash can, and how they repurpose it for compost and biofuel. And then the water agency's presentation was on reclaiming the water after it goes down the drain and processing it. They're working hard to make sure that we don't have to rely on water from the Colorado River or other places, so that we can be more self-sufficient. And then thirdly, Costa Mesa steps up. We're being challenged to track our steps via phone, Fitbit, etc., and submit your steps. Individuals that average 8,000 steps a day can be entered into weekly drawings to win some awesome prizes. I love to walk around this city. You see a lot of really good things that you don't necessarily see. So check with costamesaca.gov/CM Step Up and get signed up. That's it for today. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell, very much. Vice Chair Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a brief comment, and I'll try to keep it quick and in accordance with the new, in guidance with the new regulations, I guess, new policies. But first off, I would like to welcome Commissioner Earth to the commission and look forward to working with you. You said it's going to be exciting. I will ask you in 3 months how you feel about that. But I just wanted to make a quick statement, and it's and I struggled, honestly. I debated whether to make a statement regarding the response to the Derek Chauvin decision in this country, but I felt like that it would be appropriate, and it remains appropriate because I feel that obviously the death of George Floyd shook the nation to the core, and we understand that issue after May 25th, 2020, a lot happened in our country in terms of attempting to reconcile with some of the issues and ills that we've continuously dealt with. And a lot of those equity issues are issues of bias and racism, we have learned are rooted in a lot of land use policies. And I've heard and I've seen comments about people making comments in response to my public comments and saying, is this the right forum? Is this the right place to make statements like this? And to that, I retort, yes, because I believe, and I deeply believe that our country, our nation, our city and communities can be a lot better if we lived next to one another, if we went to school with one another, if we went to church with one another. I think it would help us bring down the walls. I believe that it would help us bring down the barriers that exist and continue to keep us separate. And a lot of those decisions start with planning commissions. They start at the local zoning level. They start with staff's recommendations. And it's built within racial covenants, which we talked about last summer. It's built within zoning policies and other land-based decisions. And so our nation took a sigh of relief because of the verdict, which, while it's not related to planning decisions, I'm sure we could tie it down to locale and where people place in policy all kind of correlate, and how that can determine a person's life and or death. And in certain instances, in that instance, it was death. And but I want to say that I'm proud that our nation is looking to make better decisions. I'm proud that our community has committed to equitable policies and taking a committed approach to rethinking how we approach land use and administrative policy. So I'll close by saying that this body is undoing and improving upon some of the decisions that have plagued our nation for many years and separated us. And hopefully we can continue as a commission and body work to unite communities and people so that we can bring down the walls and eliminate those differences. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir, very much. Just for me tonight, I want to welcome Commissioner Areth, and I'm really looking forward to your input and your contributions. As I sent you a note over the weekend, I think you're going to be a terrific addition. I'm loving the diversity of this planning commission and the perspectives that are going to be brought to the table, particularly as we deal with significant planning issues as we're about to do with our housing element. And subsequent to that, any general plan amendments and zone changes we're going to need to do to implement that housing element. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. As I mentioned to you, my door and my phone's always on. So if you have questions or need to talk, give me a holler. I've told that to all the commissioners. And I think the Planning Commission of Costa Mesa remains as strong as I've seen any commissions I've dealt with in Southern California, and I deal with a lot. So I'm a bit biased, but that's okay. Also, I want to reiterate that the City Council and the Planning Commission will be having a study session tomorrow night to kind of start looking at the first kind of form of components that are coming together with respect to the housing element. And I think this is a very important process that the community needs to remain engaged in. We have some significant planning challenges relative to our RENA allocation. And I think it's also an opportunity for the community to weigh in, and particularly members of the community who have been underrepresented in the city in its history to participate in a significant way. And this kind of aligns with Vice Chair Colbert's remarks. The opportunity to address some of the issues that Vice Chair Colbert mentioned are probably as the opportunity has probably never been greater than with this housing element and the zoning and the general plan work we're going to have to do. So I'm glad Vice Chair Colbert continues to push on this button. I think the community needs to weigh in on it throughout this process. And I think when we come out at the end of the day, we're going to be a community that is much more equitable with respect to housing and all sorts of land use decisions and regulations that we have coming out of this process. So I would encourage everyone to participate in the community. So hopefully we'll see a big turnout tomorrow for the housing element joint study session. And with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission staff or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. So we have one item on the consent calendar this evening, commissioners, and that is our general plan annual review. Commissioners, if you wish to pull this, please raise your hand for a separate discussion. Okay, Commissioner Toller wishes to pull the item for discussion. Julie, any members of the public that also wish to pull the item?
Yes, David Martinez would also like to pull the item. He has his hand raised.
Okay, very good. So what we'll do is we'll have Mr. Arias present the 2020 annual review of the Costa Mesa 2015-2035 general plan. And then following the presentation, we'll open it for commissioner questions, and we'll lead off with Commissioner Toller since he pulled it. And then we'll also then open public comment on the item, and then Mr. Martinez and any other member of the public who wishes to speak on this item may do so. So Mr. Arias, the floor is yours.
Perfect, thank you. Let me share my presentation real quick. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Justin Arias, Assistant Planner. This item before you is the 2020 annual review of the 2015 to 2035 Costa Mesa General Plan. State law requires an annual progress report to the city's legislative body annually. This provides a status of the general plan and the city's progress in its implementation for the calendar year 2020, including specific information regarding housing construction. Once approved by City Council, it will be submitted to the state. HCD did recently update their forms to be in compliance with state law and recently adopted Assembly bills and Senate bills. The 2020 annual report or annual review includes Table 1, which is the annual review summary, which describes the status of the 2015 to 2035 general plan goals, policies, and objectives, and its progress in 2020. And Attachment 1 provides the annual progress report forms that provides the city's building activity in addition to the city's progress in meeting its share of the regional housing need. So some of the highlights for the city for 2020, overall 8 additional residential units were entitled, 275 residential building permits were issued, 140 residential units were completed, and 22 residential units were demolished. In addition, 44 ADUs were submitted in 2020, 19 building permits were issued for ADUs, and a total of 7 ADUs were completed in 2020. Regarding the RHNA, as of this year, the city has satisfied its RHNA allocation for the 5th cycle, providing the required number of units. Overall, during the planning period, the city has approved over 1,000 total units, and then the breakdown is provided on this slide. Related to the city's housing programs in fiscal year 2019-2020, One owner-occupied rehabilitation project was completed, and 17 mobile home rehabilitation projects were also completed. For the housing cycle, the city's housing programs have assisted 7 owner-occupied rehabilitation projects and 102 mobile home rehabilitation projects. Some notable approvals for 2020. With COVID, there was a less activity related to development. However, the city did adopt some urgency ordinances, the first of which was 24-month entitlement extensions for active entitlement approvals. In addition, City Council did adopt an urgency ordinance related to outdoor activities and uses. And finally, the City Council did hold a study session and adopted a moratorium on short-term rentals. In addition, the city is continuing to implement its new land management system. As well, the city is in the process of working through its housing element update with the consultant being hired, study sessions and town hall meetings being conducted throughout the process. Finally, we did also adopt several fees related to our Measure X modifications, as well as the newly created wireless telecommunications use permit. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve the 2020 annual review and submit to the state. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arias. Commissioner Toller, you pulled the item, so the floor is yours on any questions and comments that you have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had trouble finding the mute button. Thank you for that, Mr. Arias. I thought that was a perfect presentation. You dug out all the little nuggets in there that are buried in kind of a overwhelming, kind of a dense report, right? That I found that helpful. The land management system. Can I get just a little information on what that is?
Sure, I can provide a quick overview. Our land management system is essentially our permit tracking system. Right now, we use Permits Plus and our software for managing land records, as well as development information. At this point, is over 20 years old. We're predating the cell phone essentially at this point. So we're looking very much forward to updating our technology. A new technology will allow us to do things like electronic plan check and have much more information sort of transparently on site and online for our customers. And I think it will also allow us to do online applications, which we are looking forward to, that our current technology doesn't support. So we are about midway through the rollout of the new land management system, and we expect to have it fully operational in about a year.
Cool, and that is supposed to, that's more of kind of an in-house accelerating the permit process sort of thing. I was thinking maybe it's kind of a mapping system that's open to the public that they could do some research, but it's not that. It's more of an in-house thing.
It's actually a little bit of both. It certainly addresses the in-house part of this, which certainly leads to some efficiencies on staff's side of things, so that we can move a little faster with a lot of the customer service aspects of our jobs. But it also allows us to build upon a land management system that's much improved, that we could actually do something that's a little bit more public facing. Now our technology just doesn't support it. So our intent is to build upon it with some outward facing mapping software. I think that would help people answer basic zoning questions for themselves, for example, through some kind of map interface. So that is the sort of step 2 after we get the basic platform of our technology launched.
Great, thank you. So first off, the meat of this report was the table that gave us the progress line by line on each general plan policy, and it took me several hours just to read through it. So it really made me appreciate how much work staff does, not only taking care of all this stuff, but also keeping an eye on all this checklist that we have to report on. And it's just an overwhelming amount of work. So special shout out to staff doing all that. And I'm glad this is a kind of a quiet, short meeting tonight, because I think it's worth pausing here and using this as an opportunity to talk about what our stated vision is for the city. As I read through all those lines, the goals, objectives, policies of the entire general plan, and like I said, there's a lot. What stands out to me is that we kind of want to have our cake and eat it too in a lot of ways. And I think that's inevitable given the nature of how these things are put together with so many drivers at the wheel, so to speak. I mean, it's a public process, and everybody's got to generally agree on these sort of things. But from my perspective, and as you all know, the thing that I'm always looking at is the way we grow, right? On one hand, there's a lot of language in there that says we want walkable, mixed use, human scaled growth that reduces dependence on the automobile. We say that explicitly a few times in there. At the same time, we say pretty explicitly, we're going to limit development based on how much traffic we predict that it's going to quote unquote generate, right? And I see those as competing priorities, right? They're fundamentally, there's kind of a competition there. On the circulation side, it's similar. We want safe streets so that everybody can walk and bike safely and comfortably. But we also say, it's buried in there. It's kind of technical and hard to dig out, but we want to keep the cars flowing like a river. Traffic's got to keep moving. We want both at the same time. And some of these things are just fundamentally, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We kind of have to, effectively, at the end of the day, there's no way around having to kind of choose which of the two paths we lay out that we want to pursue, right? And which of the two paths we want to keep writing ongoing for that other cell. So I have just two comments given that in light of everything I just said. So first, especially in light of RENA and this big allocation that we have, and as we grow and as we densify, I want to keep bringing this topic to the surface. We need to, and if you read through this whole thing, you notice a theme. Accommodating cars are at the center of it, right? We need to think hard about the spatial demands of cars. We need to think about the environmental tolls of cars. We have a lot of language that say we do care about sustainability and those sorts of things. We need to, you get into cars, the production, the disposal of cars, their use, what they burn, the stuff coming off the tires, the air quality. We need to think about that. The spatial demands, the environmental toll, the financial toll that planning for cars causes, both on the city. We spend a good chunk of city funds go into accommodating everybody getting around by car, but also on individuals and on families. The cost of car ownership is it's near devastating. It's huge once you sit down and think about how much of your monthly budget you're putting into owning and operating a car, and the financial toll also in terms of what it does to housing affordability. It's huge. It's a huge impact. We need to think about the violence that they're doing to our shared public space, both figuratively and literally. And so that's my first comment. We need to, I'm going to keep tooting this horn and bringing this to the surface of our discourse as much as I can, but we need to think about whether it's worth having the accommodation of cars at the center of all of our land use and circulation decisions and policies. That's my first comment. The second comment, if we're serious about the better path, the human scaled, sustainable, mixed use, walkable, bikeable, beautiful, sustainable path that's laid out. There's a lot of good language in there in the general plan. If we're serious about that, my comment is, how can we do more with less? I just want to keep asking that question. I think that's a good question to keep coming back to. When it comes to land use, I think there's a lot of tweaks we can make. And I mean tweaks, I don't mean overhauling the general plan and going through all sorts of rigmarole, to ensure that each project that comes in is the best version of that project that it could be. What are we doing to ensure that small and medium-sized projects can get through without a lot of hassle, so that they can both happen, that they come in well, that they're the best they can be, so that we don't have to rely so much on big controversial projects to meet those goals that we talk about of walkability, mixed use, and sustainability. When it comes to circulation, I hope that we can focus on the network. When we talk about walkability, that's one thing, but our city's big. If we're getting across town, we're a biking city in its ideal form, I think. If you come to those bike meetups, we get across town pretty quick, and you see how effortlessly you can get a mile away, how easy that is. I hope that we could focus on the network, not big project by big project that's kind of disconnected, but what are the small things that we could be continually doing to that we can leverage to make big differences. And I know that these goals, objectives, and policies, these are real technical and stuff, and I understand the way they work and how we have to address them and kind of check those boxes, and that's good. But to complement that, I want to just insert into the discussion some other metrics that I think are more helpful and more applicable to our day-to-day lives. If we're serious about those policies, I mean, we have it real explicit in there. Every street should be a street that's safe to bike on. I love that, like, stuff like that. If we're serious about that, here's some sort of metrics that I think we could at least keep thinking about and keep raising, even informally. Is it more comfortable this year to send my 10-year-old to school on foot or by bike with his friends? Is it better than it was 2-3 years ago? That's there you go. There's real life. That's a good metric, I think. Is car light living? You know what I mean? Car light living, is that more viable? Is that more practical than it was 5 years ago in Costa Mesa? Is it more difficult? Is it the same? Has nothing changed? I know we're doing big projects on Adams and Merrimack and Bear and Hamilton. I'm super happy, super grateful for those. I'm glad we're doing those. Is becoming a one-car family? You guys heard that term? We're a one-car family. That's like a thing. It's kind of, I think it's related to car light lifestyles, right? Is that more doable? Are we there yet? Can I replace 2 or 3 of my car trips per week with riding a bicycle? Can I drop my kids off at school? Can I go get a bag of groceries? Can we go out to dinner walking? Is it getting better in those day-to-day real life ways? Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much we spend. It's not about how many projects we could take off. And again, none of this is criticism. I'm trying to just keep the discussion real practical. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you, staff, for putting that together. I spent a lot of time digging into that. I found all of it. I was in awe at how much work we've been doing and how much we did accomplish. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for that, and also to insert those comments into the discussion. So thank you.
Mute. Thank you, Commissioner Toller. Any other commissioners wish to speak to the item? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Torje.
Yes, thank you. I just want to acknowledge Commissioner Toller's comments about the staff's hard work. This has been a really tough year, and staff has been amazing at doing all of this. I remember last year we pulled this item as well to talk through. There's a lot of work. I have 2 questions. My first question for staff is on, actually, they're both on handwritten page, I believe 19. C 1.4. Actually, I hadn't written page 18, C 1.4, pursue downgrading of arterials that no longer have the demand. So I just wanted to check, did OCTA respond with any requests to downgrade with the master plan of highways, or have they ever responded to a downgrade on the master plan of highways?
Commissioner George, I'll answer that. We'll have to defer that to our transportation division. Unfortunately, our liaison is not available, but we'll get a response for you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, that's
Thank
a great question. I just want to hear, I just wanted to know if OCTA has downgraded highways in its master plan. The next question is C 1.6. Encourage the conversion of excess on-street parking spaces. This just reminds me of what we're doing now in COVID. And so I'm wondering if there has been, or what would be the next steps to pursue keeping some of those landscaping, or we have gathering places or parklets that are existing right now with COVID, social distancing in place. Would this ordinance that's ongoing be something that would be continued with that, or what would be the next steps to continue like those parklets? And I wish I had asked that in a more eloquent way, but let me know if you get my meaning.
Commissioner Torje, I think I understood your question. So essentially the flexibilities that were allowed due to the pandemic, and specifically the need to get a little more social distancing and allow our businesses, and particularly restaurants, to move outdoors during the pandemic, were done via an urgency ordinance, and that ordinance does expire at the end of this year. So at the expiration of the ordinance, we would be looking for City Council to provide some specific direction as to any next steps, if there was a desire to continue those flexibilities beyond the urgency ordinance timeline. So that would be the next step.
Okay, and are there measurements to say what is excess parking?
I can say that almost all of our commercial businesses essentially meet our parking code. So we would be using our parking code to determine what is excess and what isn't. There aren't a lot of commercial lots that have excess parking.
Okay, great. And then I have one other comment, and I'll keep it very quick, Chair. Goal LU-2 on handwritten page 6 is preserve and protect residential neighborhoods. And I think tomorrow, as we're talking about the housing element update and where we'll be putting housing, and where we'll be identifying, well, let me not say putting housing, where we will be identifying opportunity sites. I think there's some instances where we'll have to think long and hard about what neighborhoods we're preserving in their character, and which ones we're prioritizing. And so I just want to put that in our minds as we're thinking about what it means to add those almost 12,000 units zoned for the community, and what we mean by protect and preserve. So that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Russell, and then Commissioner Arith.
I just have really one comment. This is a really good report. I read through it and was really impressed with the staff work. My comment is about results, and the fact, that ongoing seems to be used in a couple of different ways, and it's not always helpful to know where we are in the situation. Ongoing sometimes means we've been talking to Caltrans about undergrounding the 55 freeway, and that's going to be ongoing. And probably when we do this again in 2025, it's probably going to be ongoing. And then there's ongoing, that is, we test the sound at the fairgrounds, which it's ongoing because we have a policy, we have a procedure, and it's working and it's ongoing. And then there's the ongoing, especially on, and I think I was focused because I was on the bike ride yesterday, you know, of creating and funding a bike safety program and supporting marketing, and those still say ongoing. And it seems like those are things that maybe could have some timelines put on them. Like when is the revised Fairview master plan going to be completed? I know it's being worked on, but it's ongoing. And things like I don't know, I made a lot of notes about when is this going to happen and how is this going to happen, and it's just a comment. Lions Park, is there an approximate completion date for that? It's being implemented ongoing. I don't know. I think it's just a language issue that a line or two more would make it helpful to have a sense of, in the process of the planning and doing the work, where are we? So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Russell. Commissioner Arith.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by saying, you know, you're in a group of like-minded people when your colleagues take all your best questions. So I think the point is to jump in early and get them in. Thank you. I'd like to start off.
Lesson one learned. Very good.
Exactly. So no, I'd like to start off seriously by saying that this report is phenomenal. It's very clear that staff spent a lot of time preparing this, and it's evident by the types of descriptions and the objectives and policies that were put down. So I'd like to congratulate you guys on that. I will echo Commissioner Russell's comments in saying that there were some sections along the way that said ongoing. And like Commissioner Russell, I was hoping to just see, if anything, just a brief description of things. So I'll give you an example. Handwritten page 10, LU 4.6, incorporate the principles of sustainability into land use planning, infrastructure, and development processes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions consistent with state goals. I know that the city has just hired the sustainability and energy manager, and she's making good work in this last year to follow through with a lot of those promises. But I would think at this point, there might have been something that we could have put in there, or at least a description of the areas that we're focusing on. I think that would have been helpful as well. If you turn over to handwritten page 15, and you're looking at LU 7.2 through LU 7.4, I wrote down a lot of, well, how are these things being brought to fruition? There really wasn't much of an explanation for those particular things. So for example, support linkages between local educational institutions and local industries and businesses, foster training, collaboration with employers, and new innovative programs that increase job opportunities for residents and students attending school locally. And then the description for the action is just ongoing. The objective is really nice. It made me want to know what was going to be carried out. So I know that puts staff under, you know, in a position to have to do maybe potentially a little bit of extra work, but some of these things are, I think, rather important. And if we're to submit this on in the future, I think it would be good for us to include just some of those things as well. But with that said, I think it was a fantastic document. So thank you for preparing it this way.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Colbert.
I have one question. Great report, of course. I think this Commissioner, Council Member Reynolds actually brought this up in her comments at the past council meeting, and I just wanted to kind of tag on to it in terms of the park space and understanding that we plan to achieve, these RENA allocation numbers. On handwritten page 62, it talks about providing a minimum of 4.26 acres of parkland per 1,000 people. Obviously, with higher density and also higher units, as more people, how does the city plan to achieve or create? I know we just can't create space, but meet this standard when we have equity issues in terms of park space throughout certain areas right now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Colbert. This is a very difficult question that you've asked. I think it's a question that a lot of communities grapple with, particularly communities that have a relatively built out environment. Essentially, the statement that you're referring to is a population by population goal. So certainly as we increase housing units and increase our population, the demand for parkland goes up. And I think we have heard comments from this commission as well as council members. Just as we start going down the path of this housing element, we want to ensure that we're thinking about public services and public amenities like parks as we're planning for future housing units and future populations. The difficulty of how to go about doing that is certainly much harder than including a goal in the general plan. We have several implementing documents for parks. For example, we have a parks master plan, which is really the primary way that you plan for additional parks. We also have a number of fees and funding sources that are part of that calculation for how you go about either creating new amenities in existing parks or expanding parkland itself. Certainly there's a few ways to do it. One of them is to improve facilities that you already have, adding amenities. And the second way is to essentially acquire property for parkland purposes. The second is very difficult in a built out city. So that's something that we're going to have to grapple with moving forward. And I don't have a good answer for it today.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a follow-up to that.
Sure.
Ms. Lee, thank you for that response. But I also, in terms of kind of thinking about achieving our arena allocations, most of that may or may not be done through multifamily apartments or some type of higher density use. And just hypothetically, if a potential developer proposes to build a high density use and proposes a park space with that per the city's regulation or guidance, does that park space, is it typically public or private, or how would that be determined in terms of, since the developer actually built it to meet our goals? Would the like how would that work?
Yeah, so I think you've drawn a distinction between sort of private amenities that are provided with a development versus public park space. So it's a couple of different things. Certainly as part of our development standards, we could require sort of the amenitization of housing development in the city. Certainly that can be part of our discussion of specific plans or overlays or any other zoning scheme. That obviously increases the cost of development. So there's always a balance between requirements and then feasibility of housing developments in the city. So it's something to be considered, but that's certainly part of the solution. Technically, private amenities don't necessarily count towards public park space, which is what that 4 acres is referring to. So I do think it's a combination of the two. Private amenities are certainly provide a community benefit.
Okay. Thank you for that response. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Tuller, did you have something further? Your hand was up.
I do, if that's okay.
Quickly, and then we'll get to public comment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out, I wasn't going to jump into details, but since everybody else did, handwritten page 18. This is just, I just want to bring this to everyone's attention. Update the city's engineering standards for public and private streets to provide for safe, comfortable, and attractive access and travel for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit users of all ages and abilities and modes of travel. That's a nugget right there. Our explanation says when streets are resurfaced or reconstructed, the striping is modified to improve travel for all modes and meet the latest standards in the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, so the MUTCD. And just so everybody is aware, that is currently undergoing major revisions, and a lot of people are unhappy with the revisions. A lot of organizations and cities are calling for an overhaul. They're open for public comments until May 15th. If you go to handwritten page 31, we have a specific recommendation, recommendation C8.5, utilize complete street elements as demonstrated in most recent versions of the National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACTO. So NACTO, National Association of City Transportation Officials, has a template out there calling for a total overhaul. It's scathing, devastating criticisms on their website, saying this is trash and we need to revise this. It's not good enough. America Walks, NACTO, a handful of cities. I was just on their website. They have a list on their websites. National League of Cities, National Resources Defense Council, America Walks, NACTO both have their own templates out there. They're trying to mobilize people against the MUTCD revision that's taking place right now. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Our policy is to use NACTO standards. If there's conflicts with MUTCD, of course, one's got to trump the other, but I just want to drive that home. Our policy says we go to NACTO standards for these sorts of things. So I hope when we do restripe and resurface that we're going to that first, and that everything's going to the Bikeway and Walkability Committee for review before it's too late for any modifications. So that's my last comment. I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open public comment. And any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, please raise your hand.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to allow David Martinez. You may provide your public comment.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Martinez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Kind of faint, but if you could speak up a little, it'd be great.
Okay, I'll talk loudly. And sorry if I also talk fast, but I have a lot of things to get through. C 1.15 says to implement neighborhood approved traffic calming measures. It's a nice CMAB shout out, and Randolph is okay. It's mainly a parking project. What else can we do for this? I'm especially looking forward to projects we can do on the east side. C 1.16, establish priority ranking system to evaluate traffic calming requests. It says ongoing. I want to know, well, how's it actually going? C 2.1, establish a citywide crosswalk policy. Number one thing in this policy should be that every intersection has 4 legs. Stop making intersections that don't have 4 legs. C 3.2, 3.3, and 4.18 mention expansion of transportation system choices, improvement of transit system performance. Please work with Okta to make the bus system better. More frequent buses are great, and hopefully we can get bus rapid transit in Costa Mesa. C 4.4 says embrace innovative parking solutions that reduce required need for parking. Here's an innovative solutions. Just remove the mandatory minimum parking requirements that embrace that solution. C 5.6 and C 7.12 mention coordinating improvements of bikeways with adjacent cities. Obviously, it's not ongoing because on Bristol Street, Santa Ana constructed a fantastic protected bikeway, and on the Costa Mesa side, there's not even a sidewalk. C 7.1, develop extensive bike and pedestrian backbone network. It only mentions the ATP in the city actions. I want to know, what have we actually done? C 7.5, plan and install paths and utility corridors and flood control channels. Let's hurry this along. I would really like the Paularino Channel Trail. C 7.13, prioritize safe access to major regional trails like the Santa Ana River Trail and Back Bay, and connect them using Class 1 and Class 4s. Where are they connected? The city action mentions Adams Avenue. It doesn't even reach the Back Bay, so that's not a connection. Let's connect them. C 7.15, identify favorable opportunities to retain parallel parking adjacent to sidewalks to maintain pedestrian safety. Let's expand this to include bike safety and have parking protected bike lanes. C7.19, establish designated safe routes to schools for biking and walking. The routes we have right now aren't safe, but suggested, and they were made in 2010. The suggested language can also be seen in C8.12. Let's have safe routes to school. C8.19, encourage schools to develop and provide bike safety curricula such as bike rodeos. The last time a bike rodeo happened was when I was 3 years old. Let's get something new. C9.14, detours through or around construction zones should be designed for safety. Share the road signs aren't safety. I'm looking at you, Fairview Road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Julie, any other public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, no one else has raised their hand.
Okay. So I'll close public comment on the item. So just a few observations, and I think all of you brought up some very good points, and I think also Mr. Martinez did. Just out of kind of having experienced these over many years. So I always, when I first started looking at these, I did the same thing a lot of you guys are doing, is you look at these and you go, oh, wow, how come this is not done yet? How come this is? So keep in mind that this is a 20-year document. And so I look at the word ongoing, and it reminded me when I go back to when my kids were in school and you go in for the parent-teacher conference and they give you the report card, and there's the grade that they get for the quarter, and then there's some comment about the progress that they're making in reading or math or whatever. I kind of look at these things the same way. As a lot of these things are going to be going throughout the 20-year cycle of this document because they're huge. And so I agree that some clarifying examples, in addition to the ongoing, are helpful. And so, I think it may be, and I'm surmising that basically all the department heads are responsible for their various reporting on each of the land use policies and the goals and objectives and how we're doing on them. But, it's interesting to me that this, given everything that's going on from a state policy perspective, and this goes to Commissioner Toller's and somewhat to Commissioner Areth's comments, and the whole concept of, it's not even a concept, it's a mandate, and it's a dramatic mandate. The whole concept of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 in this state is absolutely going to rewrite everything we do about designing streets and roadways in municipalities going forward, and how we handle parking, and how we, the idea that, VMT analysis is now the critical traffic analysis component under CEQA. There's a reason for that. And the reason is the state legislature and the regulators want you out of your car. That's the bottom line. And that's why you're seeing, they want to see densification around work centers, densification around urban cores, because they don't want people commuting in from Norco or Corona to go to work or to go to the, whatever it is. So I think a lot of the areas with respect to streets and traffic and how that's going to evolve over some time. That's not to say that there's some policies we can't implement to kind of move some of these things along. But a lot of these policies, really, it's like trying to melt an iceberg with a match, and it takes time. And so I don't disagree that it would be helpful for the commission and the council to have like key milestones that were hit or key projects that were hit that explain the ongoing comment, so that we can have examples to point to the public. For instance, Mr. Martinez, where is that? Well, how's that? I think those kinds of things are helpful. I get that staff is understaffed and overwhelmed, and there's a million things going on. But I do agree that keeping in mind that ongoing, some of these will be ongoing into the next general plan cycle. Ongoing doesn't mean we're working on it and it'll be complete soon. It means ongoing, and it could be ongoing always because regulations change, state initiatives change, local interests politically change. So I'm not as put off by the ongoing as some of the other commissioners may have been, only because I've seen these a million times. I want to say about the parks that Vice Chair Culver, he brings up a very interesting point because, you know, there's national standards for how many acres of parks you should have per 1,000 people, and state standards, and those are standards. And I would probably guess that those standards, at least for California, are going to change, given that it seems like the state has placed a higher priority on housing than parkland. Because the two, if you're going to densify, providing the requisite acreage for parks per 1,000 people, if you densify, are competing interests. You just aren't going to have the land to pull it off. Now, I will say, and this is why it's important, and I always push for it when I was on the Parks Commission, that we should be mindful to take care of our relationship with the Newport Mesa Unified School District, because we have a joint use agreement with them to use their property off hours for recreation when they're not using it to educate kids. And in the past, that joint use agreement has come under some scrutiny, shall we say, and the district has at times been put off by attitudes the city has about, well, we should have use of open space at the schools, and we should pay a minimal amount of money to the school district to maintain those facilities that we use after hours. In my mind, that counts as parkland, even though we don't own it. So we should be mindful to take care of our relationship with the district. And I've said that always for the last 14 years, and 15 years, and I'll continue to say it. I agree with Commissioner Toller that our objective from a municipality should be to, and the state may make us do it anyway, given CEQA and VMT, to de-emphasize the automobile. And, you know, I think we were talking about, you know, parking, you know, is this center overparked or underparked, if it's adequately parked? And that analysis is strictly code-based. And you'll see in more and more jurisdictions as applications are coming forward for shopping centers or modifications to shopping centers, that if you looked at the application and the uses that they were being requested for a center strictly on a code-based, everything would be underparked, everything. And so most jurisdictions now are making decisions to basically kind of waive the parking standard if you can prove through a parking analysis that you're adequately parked based on the uses. So you go out and you see what the peak utilization of the lot is, or the parking field is at peak hours. And if you can demonstrate that the utilization is okay, and that the new uses won't push you beyond 100% of whatever you want your standard to be, then typically cities will give that applicant the go-ahead. So all that is to say is, I think we need to get away from parking standards. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to park uses and not square footages, and you do it based on hard utilization analysis rather than on 4 per 1,000, 10 per 1,000, whatever it is. And I don't think we should make it convenient for people to park all the time. I think there should be times where if it's tough to park, they'll decide, well, from my house, I can walk to the camp and have dinner, or I can drive my car. I should walk. And if I know it's going to be crowded and I don't want to search for a parking place, I'll walk or I'll ride a bike. So this idea that we have to create, this idea that parking should be free and convenient, I don't get it anymore. I just don't. And I think if we're going to reduce greenhouse gases and we're going to densify, then we're going to have to look at our parking. And I think that addresses a whole host of issues and policies within the general plan report. So sorry, I may have just violated my own rule. So with that, I'm going to move that the Planning Commission recommended the City Council approve the 2020 annual review of the 2015-2035 Costa Mesa General Plan for final submittal to the State Office of Planning and Research and the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Is there a second? Vice Chair Colbert. Okay. Can I just get your voice confirmation on that, Vice Chair?
Yes, second.
Thank you, sir. Any comments on the motion, commissioners, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Julie, roll call vote, please.
Chair Jericho,
Aye.
Vice Chair Colbert,
Aye.
Commissioner Arith,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Toller,
Aye.
Commissioner Torje.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0 with Commissioner Zick absent.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to public hearings. Julie, could you read public hearing item number 1, please?
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 20-18 for a marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility, SCCC Group, located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit M104. Please note that we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call to report any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any ex parte communications to report, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Yeager, the floor is yours for the staff report.
All right, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm just going to pull up my presentation here. All right, how's that look? Perfect. Okay, so my name is Chris Yeager. I'm assistant planner here with the City of Costa Mesa, and tonight I'm presenting the Measure X CUP for SCCC Group at 3505 Cadillac Avenue in Unit M104. So the project is located within the Cambridge Park, a multi-tenant industrial park at 3505 Cadillac. And this location and the whole general area is within the Measure X zone. The property is zoned PDI, Plan Development Industrial, and it has a general plan land use designation of Industrial Park. The properties to the north and east are zoned MP Industrial Park. To the west is the Santa Ana River, and to the south is the 405 freeway. This application, it is a conditional use permit to operate a marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility within the existing tenant space. The application is proposing to use the tenant space for non-volatile cannabis manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. With regards to the state licensing requirements, the applicant will be applying to operate under a Type 6 manufacturing and Type 11 distribution license. So on November 8th, 2016, voters of Costa Mesa approved Measure X, which allows for cannabis businesses, including distributors, manufacturers, processors, research labs, and development laboratories, as well as testing labs within the Measure X zone. Cultivation of cannabis and retail are still prohibited under Measure X. The SCCC Group applied for their marijuana business permit for a marijuana manufacturing and distribution facility, and that application was reviewed by the Community Improvement Division, and it included a background check as well as other required submittals of the business plan, operations plan, security plan, and safety plan. Once all items were received, staff issued a notice to proceed letter to the applicants on October 19th, 2020, and the application for the CUP was filed on December 2nd, 2020. Upon approval of a CUP,
The applicant would begin the remaining steps of a marijuana business approval process, which includes obtaining any building or fire safety permits and inspections. And upon completion of all of the required steps, the marijuana business permit would be approved, and the applicant would also need to receive a business license from the city. After approval of the marijuana business permit and business license, they would need to obtain any necessary permits or licenses from the State Bureau of Cannabis Control. And finally, after all of those steps, they would be able to begin operation. To date, the city has received 35 applications for Measure X uses, and 14 marijuana business permits have been issued. The Planning Commission has approved 25 CUPs thus far and has denied 4. And currently there are 6 applications, including this one, which are pending. And just a little zoomed in photo here of the Cambridge Park development. You can kind of see the distribution. So the proposed tenant space, it is located on the first floor of Building M, and it has direct access to the parking spaces at the front and rear of the building. Building M does contain 7 tenant spaces, all of which are in the process or approved or occupied by cannabis-related uses. The application proposes tenant improvements, and interior improvements include creating the areas to accommodate the cannabis manufacturing and distribution use. Also included are security measures, and they're proposed to be installed throughout the facility and to include video surveillance systems at all entrances and exits and all interior spaces, monitored burglar alarms system, and entry card readers. In addition, condition number 17 requires that the windows of the suite be secured with either 3M security window film or some other window protective device. And condition number 29 requires that an odor control system be incorporated into the facility so odors cannot be detected outside of the suite. Exterior to the suite, the applicant has provided a letter from the Business Association allowing for a designated loading and unloading parking space at the rear of the suite, which is approximately 28 feet from the entry to the suite to the parking space. The business operation includes taking in raw cannabis materials, including flowers, trim, and oil. This will be brought to the facility by licensed transport for the manufacturing, packaging, and distribution. Once the material is delivered to the receiving and quarantine area, it is within the limited access area of the building. And what that means is that only authorized personnel with valid IDs can have access to that space. From there, the cannabis material is placed within a secure storage room where it eventually moves into the manufacturing area where product infusion as well as hand and automated packaging occurs. The manufacturing area contains commercial grade kitchen appliances, which will be used to process the raw cannabis materials into finished products. And these products include a variety of edibles, capsules, tinctures, pre-rolls, vape cartridge, and disposable cartridges. Once the products have been manufactured into their final goods, they are moved into the quarantine area where products will await testing from a third party before they're labeled and packaged for final distribution. After testing is completed, finished goods will be transported to a licensed cannabis distribution or retail facility. In addition to the licensed spaces, there are also ancillary offices, secured storage room, and restroom, which is inside the facility there. And in addition, there is an entry at the front, which is a non-limited access entry room. Staff's proposing a variety of conditions for the project, and this includes setting limits on the signage, prohibiting cannabis use on site prohibiting outdoor storage of cannabis, and there are age limits to enter the facility, limiting cannabis graphics on the exterior of the building or any vehicles, and requiring the placement of legal signage, including signage that prohibits the use of cannabis, the age requirements, and that there be no loitering near the facility. Additional conditions from those include that all employees must wear an ID badge, that the business must obtain any and all licenses required by the state, that the applicant shall install self-closing and latching doors and commercial grade locks. And there's other security measures for conditions, including the window hardening that was already mentioned, and video surveillance with direct views to the loading area and the loading path of travel, and that the odor control system be installed. A complete list of CUP findings is available in the staff report, but essentially as conditioned, the proposed manufacturing distribution use is consistent with other industrial uses in the immediate surrounding area. The use will be within the existing building and is consistent with the zoning and the properties immediately abutting the site. And with the recommended conditions, they do include compliance with building and fire codes, which are intended to ensure that the use would not be detrimental to health, safety, or general welfare of the public. The use is consistent with the general plan goals and policy, and the proposed use will be within the existing buildings. There are no proposed additions to the building, therefore no change to density or intensity. And in addition, the proposed use is listed out as a conditionally permitted use in industrial and planned developed industrial zones in Measure X zone. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA and to approve the planning application subject to the conditions of approval. So that concludes my presentation tonight. I can make myself available to questions. We also have the applicants available, and they have a brief presentation they prepared for the commission.
Okay, excellent, Mr. Yeager, thank you. Commissioners, any questions of staff before we have the applicant come forward? Commissioner Toller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. I might have misunderstood or missed it, but I think I heard that there's been 4 Measure X CUPs denied since Measure X. Can you, I don't know a full report on each, but is there a common theme between those denials that we could hear about real quick?
Yes, so let me just pull up my screen again here. So all 4 of those denials, I just closed it out. Well, either way, all 4 of those denials did take place in the same industrial building in Costa Mesa. And this was before my time here, but my understanding is that the applicants were given the okay from the business association to apply. Once it got into the conditional use permit phase, they basically changed their mind. So they did not have the approval from the business association. At that point, the city denied the projects. Ms. Lee, if I'm missing anything, do you mind following through?
Sure. I think the important part of what was of particular concern for the commission who rendered the decision was that the types of tenants in that particular building were more office uses and were not really manufacturing or distribution uses. So from a land use perspective, the commission felt that it was not an appropriate use. There were also some concerns without the business association's approval, whether or not the applicant could actually comply with conditions of approval that required security cameras on the exterior of the building as well as the interior, as well as some concerns about the integration of HVAC systems in a shared building that essentially would have required the building association's approval. So those were some of the reasons.
And having been on those commissions, I can tell you those were exactly the reasons, and a few others, including tenants who objected, who were existing tenants who objected.
And we're fairly don't believe that those concerns are applicable to this project, the mix of tenants or the.
No, all the tenants are cannabis manufacturers, distributors are in various stages of permitting and to be in the same building, and the association has submitted a letter approving the use.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners wishing to ask questions of staff? If not, I will open the public hearing and ask if the applicant is present. Julie, if we can allow the applicant to speak. And I'm assuming that's going to be Ms. Lasky.
Yes. I have with me two of my associates, my CFO, Dan Ha, and also my engineer, Matthew Priest.
All right, Ms. Lasky, and before you begin, I need to ask you if you have read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and if you agree with the conditions of approval.
Yes, I have read the staff's conditions of approval, and I agree with them.
Okay, the floor is yours. You may proceed.
Thank you. Dan, if you would like to.
Thank you very much, Hazelina. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Fantastic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, thank you for everyone's time and consideration in this meeting. My name is Dan Ha, and although my title may be Chief Financial Officer, as a growing company, we all wear many, many hats, and it's how we come together as a team. Next slide, please. I'll be delivering the presentation tonight to provide all attendees an opportunity to learn more about where we've been as a company, where we are now, and where we'd like to go. City, regulatory, and permitting discussions, I'll defer those to Hazelina and Matthew, who are more intimately familiar. To start this journey, we as a company are bound by our slogan, inspired by love, driven by science. Again, inspired by love and driven by science. This slogan will resonate a little later in our presentation. Next slide, please. Our application for licensing in Costa Mesa is intently driven by our business plan to capture omni-channel infrastructure to engage in every form of commercial cannabis activity. As a company, we seek to operate as a singular access point across all commercial cannabis channels to provide not only other California licensees, but also end consumers with integrated access to cannabis. Forward 2 slides, please. Our current licensing infrastructure is comprised of cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution in the city of Adelanto. In the city of Lake Elsinore, we've received our approvals for a retail dispensary. In Costa Mesa, we will be operating a commercial cannabis kitchen, producing and distributing not only the known basics, such as edibles, pre-rolls, and vapes, but also some experience-based products that I'll touch on a little later. So by design, our license infrastructure will allow us and enable us to engage in the entire cannabis supply chain from seed to sale. We started as a company in 2015, licensed in Adelanto, operating in conjunction with a pain management clinic to provide pain management solutions using cannabis-derived products. Through Ms. Hazelina Lasky and using a formal pain management patient framework in determining pain before treatment and pain after treatment, Ms. Hazelina individually formulated pain management solutions for over 5,000 patients through our brand, Doctor's Choice. Through our brand, Doctor's Choice, our offerings include pain creams, tinctures, capsules, vapes, and edibles. What is unique about this particular comment is that over 5,000 individual patient records, not seeking to get high, but rather seeking some form of relief. I've had the pleasure of seeing the volumes of records and would highly encourage anyone who is listening with interest to reach out to her independently to learn more about what we've done on this side. It's nothing short of impressive to review the favorable results that were achieved by way of uniquely formulating bespoke cannabis-derived solutions. So as a company, we started in medical cannabis in earnest. And that passion carries through to who we are today. Again, we are inspired by our love of this industry and what it can do for people, but we are driven by science, which leads us to our next discussion. Next slide, please. As a business operating in Costa Mesa, we'll seek to generate revenue from not only the basic demanded products in the market today, but also through experiential-based products. It is notable that our current extraction manufacturing operations in the city of Adelanto will enable us to achieve some really great economic efficiencies in Costa Mesa, which in turn will help us load our dispensary offerings in Lake Elsinore. So with that said, I'd like to introduce all the attendees and spend some time talking about our flagship product, Canarol. We believe discussing this product will give attendees a good representation of who we are and what we're looking to accomplish in the city of Costa Mesa. Next slide, please. Canarol is an experiential product, meaning it is experience-based. It is a formulation that is used to produce a specific desired effect. Through the use of minor cannabinoids and leveraging our internal findings from our massive patient records of how certain cannabinoids affect people, Canarol is a compound of cannabinoids and natural ingredients formulated to give the same effect as Adderall. As we started in pain management and came in as an alternative to opioids in 2015, our offering Canarol addresses a new epidemic in stimulants, specifically Adderall. I'd like to take a minute to go over this new epidemic and nerd out a little bit about our product Canarol. A Google search will yield many results for those who are curious about the amphetamine epidemic. So, similar to the opioid epidemic, the amphetamine epidemic driven by Adderall is iatrogenic, meaning created by the pharmaceutical industry and physicians who were usually well-meaning yet naive about the dangers. 12% of all college students abuse Adderall in some way. Young adults from ages 18 to 35 account for 95% of misuse, and a supermajority use it for concentration, study, and alertness. Next slide, please. The way that Adderall increases dopamine and other neurotransmitters in the brain change the way that the brain's reward center functions. Canarol is designed as an alternative to give similar effect without those negatives. It is a cannabis-based product that provides energy, focus, clarity, and promotes creativity. Obviously, we're at a stage where we cannot make health claims, but we can speak from our own experience and feedback from our tests, which have been highly favorable. Based on our initial market research and conversations with distributors and dispensaries, we believe this product will have an extremely high rate of penetration, making Canarol our flagship offering. We hope to make this product a formidable product that will be a valuable addition to Costa Mesa's cannabis constituency. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, realms that are not known, but if discovered to be true, will change the way we think. We believe this to be true of experiential-based cannabis products, starting with our flagship Canarol. We are here today because of our love for this industry, and we're driven by science. Thank you for your time, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, sir, very much for your presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? I don't see any hands raised. Oh, wait, there's Commissioner Arith. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any limitations in the concentration of cannabinoids as set down by the Cannabis Association?
Absolutely. The BCC limits packaged cannabis goods to a maximum of 100 milligrams of THC per package.
Okay, so it's by package. Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. That's all.
Actually, it's 2 minutes.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Okay, I just have one as a curiosity question more than anything about your proprietary product. That's I can't remember the name escaped me. Slide was right in front of me, but it's the I'm sorry. Canarol. Thank you. So is it your plan to manufacture Canarol in Costa Mesa?
That's correct.
Okay. So and here's my curiosity question. So it sounds like this product will provide the effect of a cannabinoids, but also mimic some effects of Adderall. And you mentioned that it's manufactured using some kind of natural ingredients to kind of create that effect. I'm not asking you to tell us what those effects are or the ingredients are, because I'm sure that they're proprietary. But having said that, is there anything about the product that you've noted in your client's records that would indicate that it's in any way addictive?
No, it is in no way addictive.
Okay.
Clinically addictive.
Correct. So yeah, I'm just saying it may mimic the effect of Adderall, but we don't want it to actually be Adderall. So right, and that's fine. So I have no other questions beyond. Excuse me?
I'd like to add one additional comment
Sure.
to your question. So through our research of minor cannabinoids, we've discovered a compound and a formulation that produces these effects. So it is through the use of cannabis-derived products that we create this formula. Just to give a quick example, the cannabinoid CBD is known to be a great anti-anxiety. THC is known to produce a euphoric effect. THCV is known to be a appetite suppressant. So through the use of these minor cannabinoids and a combination thereof, we're able to produce a product that is an alternative to Adderall.
Okay, I appreciate the input. Thank you for answering my question. Okay, I will go ahead then and open the public comment portion of the public hearing. If there's any members of the public wish to speak to this item, please raise your hand or press, I think it's star 9 or star 6, I can't remember. One of those two. Julie, do we have anybody in public comment?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we received no email comments. I'll close public comment and ask the applicant if they have any final comments that they'd like to share with the commission. If not, I will bring it back to the dais. I'll close public hearing and bring it back to the dais for a motion.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lasky, very much. Commissioners, any other final questions? Please raise your hand. Vice Chair Colbert.
One small question, and Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, you may disagree with me, but this is to staff. Ms. Lee, a lot of these, and I know my fellow commissioners have questions about these applications, obviously have become a bit routine. And I think as we have become more familiar with the Measure X policies and things, do we foresee this becoming something that the zoning administrator would review and could be called up by the commission in the future?
At this point, Vice Chair Colbert, the city's zoning code requires a conditional use permit for any Measure X use, including manufacturing and distribution. We don't have any plans or direction to modify the zoning ordinance at this time, but certainly with the rollout of Measure Q, there may be a relook at procedures in general, but we don't have any direction at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Colbert. Okay, Charles will move, find the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, per CEQA guidelines, section 15301, class 1, existing facilities, and move to approve planning application 20-18, subject to the findings in Exhibit A and conditions of approval in Exhibit B. Is there a second? Commissioner Torje.
I second.
Okay, excellent. Commissioners, any comments on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a second, please. I just want to double check. Did you close the public hearing?
I did.
Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Thank you. If not, I close the public hearing, just to be safe. Okay, seeing no comments on the motion, Julie, roll call, please.
Chair Jericho,
Aye.
Vice Chair Colbert,
Aye.
Commissioner Arith,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Toller,
Aye.
Commissioner Torje.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-0 with Commissioner Zick absent.
Okay, thank you very much. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Ms. Lasky, good luck, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You bet. Commissioners, that will take us now to departmental reports in our agenda. Public Services Report, Mr. Yang, anything to report tonight?
Good evening, Chairman Oracle and honorable members of the Planning Commission. Nothing much to report is that Public Services would like to report that the ongoing citywide street improvement projects are still occurring throughout the city, such as Merrimack Way and 18th Street. So a lot of the projects are being finished up in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Development Services Report, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Chair. As a few of the commissioners have mentioned this evening, just wanted to remind the community that we do have a housing element study session. It's a joint study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council scheduled for tomorrow at 5 p.m. and login information will be posted online with the study session agenda. I hope everyone can attend. It's certainly a very important continuation of our discussion on housing policy in the city for the next 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Preziosi, City Attorney Report.
No report, Chair Jericho.
Okay. Just note that there's still lots of interesting legislation relative to housing going on in Sacramento. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'm sure staff and the city attorney are as well. So with that, we will stand in adjournment to our joint study session of the City Council and the Planning Commission tomorrow evening. And after that, our regularly scheduled meeting for May 10th. Good night, everyone.